The hum of the ship's engine was the only sound in the small cargo hold. Ethan Carter leaned against a crate, arms crossed, watching the metal door with a frown. Something wasn't right. He had taken many delivery jobs before, but this one felt different. The payment was too high, the instructions too vague. Just get the cargo off planet, the client had said. No questions, no inspections. Ethan had agreed. He needed the credits, but now, as he stood in the dim light, he had a feeling he should have asked more questions. With a sigh, he stepped forward and unlocked the cargo container. The lid hissed as it lifted, revealing a small, dark space inside. At first, he saw nothing unusual, just fabric, some supplies, until something moved. Ethan's breath caught as a figure shifted inside, golden eyes blinking in the shadows. A moment later, a woman stepped out, not just any woman, but an alien. Her skin was deep blue, almost glowing under the ship's dim lights. Her long silver hair cascaded over her shoulders, shimmering like liquid metal. She was tall, elegant, and dressed in what looked like royal robes, now torn and stained with travel. But the most alarming thing, she was looking at him like he was her only hope. "You are the pilot?" she asked, her voice smooth but urgent. Ethan tensed. "Who are you?" She took a deep breath. "I am Princess Vayara of the Zyrethian Empire, and I need your help." Ethan cursed under his breath, not loudly, just enough for himself. A princess. In his ship, he had transported all sorts of cargo, illegal goods, rare minerals, even smuggled food supplies, but never a runaway royal. He stepped back, shaking his head. No, this wasn't part of the deal. I was hired to move cargo. Not. I am the cargo, she interrupted, lifting her chin. And if you do not help me, I will be captured and forced into a life I do not choose. Ethan hesitated. He didn't know much about Zyrethian politics, but he had heard rumors, powerful noble families, arranged marriages to strengthen alliances, and brutal punishments for those who disobeyed. Still, this was not his fight. "I can't help you," he said firmly. "If the Empire finds out I took you, they'll hunt me down. I'm just a pilot, not a hero." Vayara's glowing eyes softened. "You are human, are you not?" Ethan frowned. "Yeah." She stepped closer. "Then you understand freedom. You know what it means to choose your own path." She exhaled, frustration clear in her expression. "I was to be given to a warlord, a man 3 times my age, with no kindness in his heart. My father made this deal for power, not for love. I cannot accept that. Would you?" Ethan clenched his jaw. She had a point. No human would accept being sold into marriage like a business transaction. But this was still dangerous. His life wasn't some heroic story where he rescued a princess, and everything turned out fine. Before he could argue, the ship's warning system beeped. Incoming transmission. Ethan's stomach twisted as he rushed to the cockpit. The main screen flashed with a royal crest. Zyrethian ships were in pursuit. A cold voice echoed through the speakers. "This is Commander Rathos of the Zyrethian Imperial Fleet. Unidentified vessel, you are carrying stolen property. Surrender immediately, and you will not be harmed." Ethan looked at Vayara. She was holding her breath, eyes pleading. He sighed. This was going to get him killed. But something inside him refused to hand her over. Maybe it was the way she looked at him, not as a pilot, but as someone who could help. Maybe it was the idea of an innocent person being forced into a fate she didn't choose. Or maybe it was just the fact that Ethan Carter didn't like being told what to do. He turned back to the controls, fingers moving fast. "Hold on, Princess. We're not surrendering today." With a sharp movement, he punched the thrusters, sending the ship into high-speed flight. The engines roared as they shot forward, away from the approaching fleet. The comms lit up with urgent messages, but Ethan ignored them. Vayara grabbed onto the nearest chair, her eyes widening. "You are truly helping me." Ethan gave her a sideways smirk. Let's just say I don't like bullies, and I don't plan on getting caught." The princess let out a breath, half relief, half disbelief. But neither of them knew that this escape was just the beginning. The Empire wouldn't let her go so easily. And now, Ethan Carter was officially a wanted man. The ship rattled as Ethan pushed the engines to their limit. The warning lights flashed red, and the control panel beeped angrily at him. But he didn't slow down. Behind them, the Xyrithian warships were closing in fast. Come on, Ethan muttered, his hands flying over the controls. His ship, the Starfall, was fast, but not built for combat. If those warships caught up, they were finished. Vayara stood behind him, gripping the back of his chair. "They are gaining on us," she said, her voice tense. "I know that, Princess," Ethan shot back. He wasn't in the mood for panicking. He needed to think. The Xyrithians weren't just chasing them. They were locking onto them. A red light flashed on his console. Missiles detected. Ethan cursed under his breath. "All right, hold on tight." Vayara's eyes widened. "What are you?" Before she could finish, Ethan jerked the controls to the side. The Starfall spun violently, dodging just in time as two bright missiles shrieked past them. One exploded in the distance, shaking the ship with its shockwave. Vayara yelped, nearly losing her balance. She grabbed his shoulder to steady herself. "Do you even have a plan?" Ethan grinned despite the danger. "Not really. Just making it up as I go." Vayara groaned. "That does not give me confidence." The ship's eye assistant, a robotic voice named K7, beeped to life. "Hostile vessels approaching attack range. Recommend evasive maneuvers or surrender." Ethan rolled his eyes. "Gee, thanks for the advice, K7." His mind raced. He needed to lose them. But how? They were too far from any space station, and they couldn't outrun warships forever. Then an idea struck him. The Corthan Nebula. He quickly scanned the star map. There it was, only a few minutes away. The Corthan Nebula was a thick cloud of ionized gas and charged particles. No sensors worked inside it, and ships that entered lost all navigation. It was risky. Many pilots went in and never came out. But right now, it was their only chance. Ethan turned to Vayara. "We're going into the Corthan Nebula." Her eyes widened in shock. "That place is a death trap. Even skilled pilots avoid it." Ethan smirked. "Good thing I'm a very skilled pilot." Vayara didn't look convinced, but she didn't argue. Outside, the Xyrithian warships were closing in. Ethan gripped the controls. "All right, here we go." With a burst of speed, the Starfall dived straight into the nebula. Inside the nebula, the moment they entered, everything turned blue and gold, as if they were swimming through liquid light. Strange energy swirled outside the windows, and the ship's controls flickered. The AI spoke again. "Warning. Navigation systems offline. Sensor visibility reduced to 0. Ethan gritted his teeth. Yeah, I know." Behind them, the Xyrithian warships hesitated at the edge of the nebula. Their commander's voice crackled through the comms one last time. "You are making a mistake, human. There is no escape from the Empire." Then, silence. Ethan exhaled. The Xyrithians had stopped following. They were afraid to enter. Vayara let out a relieved sigh. Did we lose them?" Ethan kept his eyes on the swirling mist outside. For now. But his grip on the controls remained tight. They weren't safe yet. Drifting in the storm. For the next few minutes, Ethan guided the Starfall through the glowing clouds. His fingers moved carefully over the controls, steering blind. Without sensors, he had to fly by instinct. Vayara watched him in silence. Finally, she spoke. "Why are you helping me?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He wasn't sure himself. He could have handed her over and taken the reward. Instead, he was now an enemy of the Xyrithian Empire. "Guess I just don't like seeing people get forced into things," he muttered. Vayara studied him. Not many would risk their lives for a stranger. Ethan smirked. Yeah, well, not most people. Before she could respond, the ship lurched violently. Vayara stumbled, grabbing the wall. What was that? Ethan checked the controls. Something's messing with the engines. The ship shuddered again, harder this time. The lights flickered, and a low hum filled the air. Then suddenly, everything went dark. The engines died. Ethan and Vayara froze as the starfall began to drift through the nebula, completely powerless. For the first time since this escape began, Ethan felt a cold chill run down his spine. They had escaped the Empire, but now they were trapped in the nebula, and something inside it was watching them. Ethan's fingers danced over the control panel, trying to restart the engines, but the screen remained dark, the ship silent except for the faint hum of the nebula's charged energy outside. Vayara's voice broke the silence. What happened? Ethan exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. Something in this nebula knocked out our power. Vayara's brow furrowed. You mean we're stuck? Unless I can get the engines running, yeah, Ethan admitted. The thought sent a shiver down Vayara's spine. They had escaped the Zyrethians, but now they were floating helplessly in an unknown storm. The swirling blue and gold light of the nebula flickered outside the windows, casting strange shadows inside the cockpit. Vayara took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Can you fix it? Ethan tapped the console again, then gave it a frustrated slap. I don't know yet. The engines aren't responding, and the backup power is dead too. Vayara crossed her arms. So what do we do? Ethan sighed. I'm gonna have to check the engine room. He stood up, grabbing a toolkit from under the dashboard. You stay here and keep an eye on the sensors. If they come back online. Vayara hesitated. And what if they don't? Ethan flashed a grin. Then we hope we don't drift into anything dangerous. Vayara didn't find that comforting. The engine room. Ethan made his way through the dimly lit corridors of the starfall. Without power, the emergency lights barely illuminated the path. The ship felt too quiet, as if something was lurking just beyond the walls. Reaching the engine room, he pulled open a maintenance panel and peered inside. A strong smell of burnt wiring filled his nose. Great, he muttered. Looks like an energy surge fried the circuits. He grabbed a multi-tool and got to work. The power core still held some charge, but something was blocking the connection. If he could reroute the energy, he might be able to restart the ship. As he worked, the hairs on his neck stood up. Something felt off, like he wasn't alone. Slowly, Ethan turned his head and froze. Through the engine room's small window, something was moving outside the ship. A dark, shadowy figure drifted through the glowing mist of the nebula. It didn't have a solid form, more like a shifting cloud of darkness with glowing white eyes. Ethan's pulse quickened. He had seen many strange things in space, but this was new. The shadowy figure tilted its head, as if it could see him. Then it vanished. Ethan swallowed hard. Yeah, that's not good. Vayara's warning. Back in the cockpit, Vayara sat in Ethan's chair, watching the dark screens. The silence made her uneasy. She had always lived in bright, grand halls filled with people. This cold, lifeless ship was the opposite of home. Then, a whisper. She stiffened. Ethan. No answer. Another whisper, soft and distant. It didn't sound like Ethan at all. It was something else. She slowly turned toward the cockpit window. The swirling light of the nebula flickered, and for a moment, she saw a shape. A tall, shifting figure of darkness, its glowing eyes locked onto her. Vayara gasped, stumbling back. No, that's impossible. The whisper came again, closer this time. She bolted from the chair and ran toward the engine room. A race against time. Ethan was still working when Vayara burst in. Ethan, we have a problem. He wiped his hands on his jacket. Yeah, I know. The ship's dead. No, she said, shaking her head. Something is out there. Something is watching us. Ethan's expression turned serious. You saw it too. Vieira nodded. It wasn't solid, more like a shadow. Ethan grabbed a flashlight and clicked it on. That settles it. We need to get out of here, fast. He turned back to the power core and made one final adjustment. Sparks crackled, and the engine hummed to life. The ship's lights flickered, then glowed steadily. Ethan grinned. There we go. Then, a loud bang echoed through the ship. Vieira flinched. What was that? Ethan's grin disappeared. Something's trying to get in. The final choice. They rushed back to the cockpit. The screens flickered back to life, but one caught Ethan's attention immediately. External sensors. A warning flashed in bright red letters. Unknown entity WDT. Vieira's heart pounded. It followed us. Ethan grabbed the controls. Yeah, and I'm not sticking around to make friends. He powered up the thrusters. The ship rumbled as it started to move again, pushing through the thick energy clouds of the nebula. Then, another impact. A dark shape latched onto the ship's hull. The sensors glitched and the lights flickered once more. Vieira gripped the dashboard. It's trying to stop us. Ethan's jaw tightened. Not if I can help it. With a deep breath, he pushed the ship to full power. The engines roared, shaking off the strange entity clinging to the hull. With a final burst of speed, the Starfall shot out of the nebula, leaving the glowing mist behind. The screen stabilized. The ship was clear. Vieira collapsed into the co-pilot's seat, breathing heavily. That was too close. Ethan exhaled, rubbing his forehead. Yeah. He glanced at her. You okay? She nodded, though she still looked shaken. What was that thing? Ethan didn't have an answer, but deep down, he knew one thing. The galaxy was full of mysteries, and some of them were better left undiscovered. The Starfall flew out of the nebula at full speed, leaving the mysterious shadow behind. But the tension inside the cockpit didn't disappear. Ethan leaned back in his chair, exhaling. Well, that was new. Vieira still looked shaken. Her golden eyes flickered with concern. What was that thing? I've never seen anything like it before. Ethan shook his head. No idea. And I'd rather not find out. He glanced at the ship's navigation screen. Their course had been thrown off by the nebula's energy storms. They weren't where they were supposed to be. Vieira noticed his expression. Is something wrong? Ethan tapped the screen. Yeah, we're lost. A mysterious planet. For the next few minutes, Ethan worked to recalibrate the ship's systems. Finally, the navigation display flickered back to life, showing a nearby planetary system. One planet stood out, a lush green world, covered in thick forests and surrounded by swirling blue clouds. Ethan pointed at it. That's the closest place we can land. We need to check for supplies and repair the ship. Vieira studied the screen. I've never seen this world on any star maps. Ethan frowned. Neither have I. That was strange. Most habitable planets were well documented, but this one, it had no name, no known colonies, nothing. Still, they didn't have much choice. Ethan adjusted the controls. Hold on. We're going in. As the Starfall descended, the planet's thick blue mist swirled around them. The ship shook slightly, but Ethan kept a steady grip on the controls. Finally, they broke through the clouds, revealing a world unlike anything they had ever seen. The Forgotten Ruins. The ship landed in a grassy clearing, surrounded by tall silver trees with glowing leaves. Strange bird-like creatures fluttered through the sky, their wings shimmering like crystal. Vieira stepped out first, taking a deep breath. The air was pure, filled with the scent of unknown flowers. This place, it feels untouched. Ethan scanned the area. Yeah, but I don't trust it. He grabbed his blaster pistol, just in case. They started walking, searching for water or anything useful, but soon they found something unexpected. Ruins. Ancient stone pillars, covered in strange symbols, stood half-buried in the earth. Vines wrapped around crumbling walls, and the air felt heavy. Vayara ran her fingers over the carvings. This writing. It's old. Very old. Ethan crossed his arms. You recognize it? She hesitated. No, but it feels familiar. Ethan knelt beside a broken statue of a tall humanoid figure with outstretched arms. Whoever built this place, where are they now? Vayara's voice was quiet. Gone. A cold breeze passed through the ruins. For the first time, Ethan felt uneasy, like something was watching them. The whispering voice. As they explored deeper into the ruins, Vayara suddenly froze. Ethan noticed. What is it? She didn't answer. Her golden eyes widened, staring at nothing. Then she whispered, I hear something. Ethan's muscles tensed. What do you mean? Vayara pressed a hand to her temple. A voice, calling my name. Ethan gripped his blaster. Are you sure it's not in your head? She shook her head. No, it's real. And it's coming from there. She pointed toward a large stone doorway, half covered in vines. Ethan stared at it. You want to go in there? After what just happened in the nebula? Vayara hesitated, but then stepped forward. I have to, she said softly. Ethan groaned. Why do I feel like this is a bad idea? But he followed her anyway. The crystal chamber. They pushed through the doorway and entered a vast underground chamber. The walls glowed softly, lit by blue crystals embedded in the rock. The air was warm, almost humming with energy. In the center of the room stood a floating sphere of light. Ethan instinctively raised his blaster. What is that? Vayara slowly walked toward it. It's calling me. Ethan grabbed her arm. Whoa, let's think about this. But Vayara touched the sphere. The room flashed with bright light. Ethan shielded his eyes, but when he looked again, Vayara was standing perfectly still, her eyes glowing with the same blue light as the crystals. Then she spoke, but it wasn't her voice. It was something ancient. Daughter of the lost bloodline, you have returned. Ethan's heart pounded. Vayara, what's happening? She turned to him, her voice still carrying the strange echo. I remember now. Ethan took a step back. Remember what? Vayara's expression was unreadable. Who I really am. The glow slowly faded from her eyes, and she staggered, nearly falling. Ethan caught her. She looked up at him, her face filled with a mix of fear and realization. I was never just a princess, Ethan. I was something more. Ethan frowned. What do you mean? Vayara swallowed hard. I think I was meant to be a queen. Ethan blinked. A queen of what? Vayara looked back at the glowing chamber. Of this world. Ethan held Vayara steady as she trembled in his arms. The glow in her golden eyes slowly faded, but the look of shock remained on her face. Vayara, he said carefully, what do you mean you were meant to be a queen? She took a deep breath, staring at the floating sphere of light in the ancient chamber. I don't know how, but I can feel it. This place, these ruins, they belong to my people. Ethan frowned. Your people? But this planet isn't on any star maps. Vayara touched the carvings on the walls, tracing the ancient symbols with her fingers. It must have been erased, forgotten. Ethan crossed his arms. That doesn't just happen. Someone must have made sure your people were lost. Vayara nodded slowly. And I think I know who. A lost bloodline. The floating sphere of light pulsed softly, as if responding to Vayara's presence. Then, a holographic figure appeared, a tall being with flowing robes and golden eyes like hers. Its voice was deep, echoing through the chamber. To the last hair of the royal bloodline. If you have found this message, then our people are gone. Vayara gasped. No. Ethan remained silent, listening carefully. The hologram continued. We were betrayed. The Galactic Council feared our power, our knowledge. They declared us a threat and erased us from history. They scattered our survivors across the stars. But one day, a daughter of the Lost Kingdom would return and reclaim what was taken. The image flickered and faded. Silence filled the chamber. Ethan exhaled. So the Galactic Council wiped out your entire civilization. Viara clenched her fists. They must have known I was the last heir. That's why they arranged my marriage, to keep me under control. Ethan sighed. And now they'll do anything to get you back. Viara looked up at him, determination in her golden eyes. Then we can't let them. A dangerous choice. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. Okay, let's think about this. If you really are the heir to this lost kingdom, what does that mean for you? Viara stared at the ruins. It means I have a choice. She turned to Ethan, her voice steady. I can run forever, hiding from the Galactic Council, or I can stand my ground and fight. Ethan studied her. He had seen fear in her before, but this was different. This was resolve. You're serious, he said. She nodded. I won't be their prisoner anymore. Ethan sighed. Then we need a plan. Viara looked at the glowing crystals around them. This planet might still have defenses. If we can reactivate them, we'll have a way to fight back. Ethan smirked. Now you're thinking like a queen. Activating the lost power. They searched the ruins, following faint energy signals deeper into the chambers. The underground tunnels stretched for miles, lined with ancient technology still humming with power. Finally, they reached a massive control room. In the center stood a large console, covered in glowing symbols. Viara hesitated. I don't know if I can do this. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to do it alone. She nodded, then placed her hand on the console. The symbols lit up. The air vibrated with energy as the entire ruin came to life. Outside, the ground rumbled. Across the planet, hidden towers and structures rose from the forests, their lights flickering back on after centuries of silence. Ethan whistled. Well, that's one way to make an entrance. Viara looked at the screen in front of her. There's a fleet approaching. Ethan's expression darkened. Let me guess. The Council. Viara clenched her fists. They found us. The fleet arrives. Above the planet, massive warships emerged from hyperspace. Their sleek, dark hulls reflected the light of the distant stars. Inside the lead ship, Ambassador Rellan, the same official who had tried to force Viara into marriage, watched the ruins with narrowed eyes. So, he murmured, she has awakened the lost world. A soldier turned to him. Orders, sir. Rellan's expression was cold. Destroy the ruins and bring the princess back alive. The ships began their descent, preparing for battle. Ethan watched the enemy fleet on the holographic display. They're coming fast. Viara took a deep breath. Then we make our stand here. She pressed a sequence of symbols on the console. Outside, the planet's defenses activated. Energy shields shimmered to life, covering the ruins. Massive turret systems emerged from hidden bunkers, ready to fire. Ethan grinned. Now that's more like it. Viara turned to him. Ethan, if this is the end, I just want to say. Ethan held up a hand. No dramatic speeches yet. We're gonna get through this. She smiled, but her eyes were serious. Then let's make history. The first enemy ship broke through the clouds. Ethan tightened his grip on his blaster. The battle for the Lost Kingdom had begun. The sky above the ruins turned dark as the Galactic Council's fleet broke through the clouds. Massive warships loomed overhead, their weapons charging, ready to destroy everything below. Ethan stood beside Viara inside the control chamber, watching the holographic display of the battlefield. His grip on his blaster tightened. They're not wasting any time. Viara's golden eyes glowed with determination. Then neither will we. She pressed a sequence of symbols on the console, activating the planet's ancient defenses. Outside, towers pulsed with energy. Long dormant turrets rotated toward the sky, their barrels charging with golden light. The ruins weren't just remains of a forgotten civilization. They were a fortress. The first enemy ship descended, its cannons aimed directly at the control room. Boom! A massive energy blast shot up from one of the towers, striking the warship's hull. The ship trembled, its shields crackling under the impact. Ethan grinned. Now that's what I like to see. The first attack. The Galactic Council's ships opened fire. Red laser bolts rained down on the ruins, hammering against the glowing energy shield that protected Vayara and Ethan. Inside the command chamber, Vayara quickly studied the ancient controls. The shield won't hold forever. We need to strike back. Ethan nodded. Tell me what to do. She pointed at another panel. These ruins have defensive drones. If we activate them, they can fight in the air while the turrets handle the ships. Ethan didn't hesitate. He slammed his hand down on the panel. Across the battlefield, metallic doors opened from hidden compartments in the ground. Sleek golden drones shot into the air, swarming toward the enemy fleet. The first wave of enemy fighters flew down, engaging the drones in a chaotic aerial battle. Lasers flashed in all directions as the sky erupted into a storm of fire. The Council's next move. Inside the lead warship, Ambassador Relin watched the battle unfold. His calm expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed. The princess has activated the old defenses. Impressive. A soldier turned to him. Sir, our first wave is struggling. Their automated defenses are too strong. Relin's fingers tapped against the armrest of his chair. Then we changed tactics. He turned to his elite commando squad, standing at attention behind him. Take a strike team to the surface. Capture the princess. The moment she is in our hands, their defenses will crumble. The commandos saluted. Understood, sir. Moments later, several stealth shuttles broke away from the fleet, heading straight for the ruins. The enemy lands. Inside the control chamber, Ethan spotted the shuttles on the holographic display. They're sending ground troops. Vayara's expression hardened. They know I'm the key to this place. If they take me, we lose everything. Ethan checked his blaster. Then they're not taking you. He ran toward the exit, but Vayara grabbed his arm. Ethan, you don't have to fight alone. He smirked. I never fight alone. Let's go. They rushed out of the chamber and into the ruins, just as the enemy shuttles landed. The doors hissed open, and heavily armed commandos stormed out, their weapons gleaming under the ancient lights. Ethan raised his blaster. Here they come. Close quarters combat. The ruins echoed with the sound of blaster fire as Ethan and Vayara took cover behind a stone pillar. The commandos advanced in tight formation, their armor deflecting some of the drone fire from above. Vayara peeked out and threw a hand forward. The symbols on her armor glowed, and a wave of golden energy slammed into the nearest soldiers, sending them flying backward. Ethan whistled. Remind me never to make you mad. She smirked. Less talking, more fighting. Ethan ducked out of cover and fired. His shot struck two commandos, knocking them down. But more kept coming. Vayara grabbed Ethan's wrist. We can't win this by force. We need to outsmart them. Ethan glanced around. Then his eyes landed on a large control panel behind the enemy soldiers. A crazy idea formed in his mind. You trust me? He asked. Vayara hesitated. Then she nodded. Always. Ethan grinned. Then cover me. The gamble. Vayara leaped out of cover, summoning another wave of golden energy. The soldiers staggered back, temporarily blinded. Ethan dashed forward, sliding across the stone floor toward the control panel. His fingers flew over the ancient keys, searching for something, anything, that could turn the tide. Then he found it. Emergency lockdown protocol activated. Suddenly, massive stone walls began rising from the ground, separating the enemy soldiers into smaller groups. Some got trapped in enclosed spaces, while others found themselves completely cut off. Ethan laughed. Worked better than I expected. Vayara rushed to his side. You trapped most of them. He smirked. Told you I had a plan. But then, a sharp alarm rang through the ruins. Vayara turned to the holographic display. Her face paled. Ethan, their main warship is charging a planetary cannon. Ethan's smile vanished. They're planning to wipe us out. The final stand begins. Above them, the Galactic Council's lead warship positioned itself directly over the ruins. Inside, Ambassador Relin watched the countdown. Once the cannon fires, the ruins will be destroyed. The princess will either surrender or be lost forever. Back in the ruins, Ethan and Vayara exchanged a look. This is it, Ethan said. Vayara's hands trembled, but she steadied herself. Then we fight until the end. Ethan took her hand and squeezed it, or until we win. The planetary cannon began to glow, ready to fire. The fate of the lost kingdom and their lives hung in the balance. The sky crackled with energy as the Galactic Council's warship charged its planetary cannon. A massive sphere of golden light formed beneath the ship's hull, glowing brighter every second. Inside the ruins, Ethan and Vayara stood together, their faces tense. If that cannon fires, Ethan said, gripping his blaster, everything here is gone. Vayara's golden eyes flickered with fear, but she straightened her back. We still have a chance. She turned to the ancient control panel, her fingers racing over the glowing symbols. The ruins held secrets even she didn't fully understand. But now, she had to use them all. Ethan watched the holographic display. The countdown on the enemy's cannon ticked down. 10 seconds remaining. He clenched his fists. Vayara, whatever you're doing, do it fast. The last defense. The ancient ruins rumbled as Vayara activated something deep within the control system. Stone towers shifted, revealing hidden energy conduits buried for centuries. The entire fortress began to glow, its golden power surging toward the sky. A giant energy barrier formed, covering the ruins just as the warship's cannon fired. A blinding beam of destruction shot down from the sky, smashing against the golden shield around the ruins. The entire planet shook under the impact. Ethan covered his eyes. The ground trembled beneath him. Is it holding? He shouted. Vayara gritted her teeth, sweat forming on her brow. For now, but not for long. The barrier cracked, golden light flickering. The cannon's blast was too strong. It was only a matter of time before. Crack! A massive hole formed in the shield. Ethan cursed under his breath. We need to take that warship out. Vayara's eyes widened. There's only one way. She pointed at a forgotten weapons system on the control panel. Ethan leaned in, reading the symbols. Ancient planetary lance. One-time use. He whistled. I like the sound of that. Vayara pressed a final sequence of symbols. Deep beneath the ruins, something awoke. The ancient weapon. From the heart of the ruins, a colossal golden pillar rose into the sky. Symbols blazed across its surface, filling the air with an electric hum. Inside the Galactic Council's warship, alarms blared. Ambassador Relin. An officer shouted. Something is rising from the ruins. On the main screen, the golden pillar of light aimed directly at them. Relin's eyes widened. Impossible. Ethan grinned. Let's see how they like being on the other end of a cannon. Vayara's voice was steady, firing. The ancient weapon unleashed a single blinding blast of pure energy. It ripped through the sky, striking the warship with incredible force. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, boom! The warship exploded, breaking apart in the sky. Flaming debris rained down, but the energy shield absorbed the impact. The sky cleared. The battle was over. Victory and a new beginning. Ethan exhaled, his heart still racing. He turned to Vayara, a tired but victorious smile on his face. We did it. Vayara's shoulders slumped, relief washing over her. Yes, it's finally over. She looked around at the ruins, her home. For years, her people had been trapped under the control of the Galactic Council. Now, they were free. Ethan chuckled. Guess that means you don't need me anymore, huh? Vayara turned to him, stepping closer. Her golden eyes were serious. I still need you, Ethan. He blinked. What? Vayara's cheeks darkened slightly. You saved me. You saved my people. And you risked everything to protect me. Ethan rubbed the back of his head. Well, yeah, but that's what friends do, right? She shook her head. You don't understand. She took a deep breath. By ancient law, if a warrior saves a royal's life, and they fight together as equals, the royal must offer themselves in return. Ethan's eyes widened. Wait, you mean? Vayara nodded. You have to claim me as your own. Ethan's brain short-circuited. Hold on. Are you saying you want me to marry you? Vayara's lips curled into a soft smile. That is our way. And she hesitated, looking into his eyes. It is what I want, too. Ethan swallowed. Of all the things he expected today, this was not one of them. Wow, he muttered. Did not see that coming. Vayara's expression turned uncertain. Unless you don't want me. Ethan saw the vulnerability in her eyes. This wasn't just a tradition for her. She truly cared for him. He sighed and shook his head with a small smile. Vayara, I'd be an idiot to say no. Her eyes lit up. Then, you accept. He grinned. Yeah, I guess I'm claiming an alien princess today. Vayara laughed, stepping closer. Then let it be known. You are mine, and I am yours. Ethan took her hands in his, feeling the warmth of her touch. Sounds like a pretty good deal to me. Above them, the stars shone brighter than ever. Their adventure had ended, but their new life together had just begun. The end.